This is John Martinka. My special guest today on the Getting the Deal Done podcast series is Lance Barnard. Lance is the owner of Ward Road Pharmacy in the greater Denver area. And Ward Road is an institutional pharmacy, meaning they don't have retail locations. Lance, you are, as of now, about 3 months in as a business owner, right?
Yep, 3 months and 2 days, but who's counting?
So, what attracted you to Ward Road Pharmacy?
Yeah, so I was looking for, I'll first say that I actually don't come from a healthcare background, but I was looking for a very particular set of um, criteria when looking for business. First off, geographically, my fiance and I wanted to live in a mountain town in Colorado or Utah, so we targeted those locations to search as the first criteria. But then the broader sense, I was looking for B2B, stable cash flow, recurring revenue businesses, COVID proof, because we were doing this search at the time, and looking for businesses that weren't impacted and wouldn't be impacted by a pandemic. Diverse customer base, no high customer concentration, just a business that I could step into knowing that it had been around for a long time and would continue to be around for a long time without hopefully any major disruptions.
Good. Now, you worked with Lisa Forrest at Live Oak Bank.
Yes.
And yeah, it brings a smile to most people's faces. And they also have their different specialty channels where they have expertise and people on staff that are really go deep in industries. What was it like working with Lisa, and especially what did you get out of the pharma expertise they have?
Yeah, so the experience with Live Oak was great. They had done a bunch of other pharmacy deals in the past, and what that did was kind of gave a big jump start to both my diligence process, because the questions that they ask, what I like to tell people is, look, if you're trying to solicit capital from investors, they're going to be a certain level of diligent, but they're looking at things in an optimistic light of view. Well, with the bank, what does the bank do? They look at the worst case scenario. So they're looking for the things that can really bite you, and that helps me sort of guide my own diligence. So they had a lot of industry specific questions. I think they're probably one of the more thorough banks when it comes to diligence, and they're perhaps a little bit more, they'll ask a lot of questions that other banks you might reach out to won't ask, and that's, can be difficult, but in the end, if you do go through and get through that process and they sign off on the deal, you have a pretty good feeling that you have a good business. So their pharmacy specific team, in addition to just the diligence aspect, they also provided a number of contacts. So whether it was quality of earnings or attorneys or people who had worked in, professionals who had worked in the pharmacy space, that was really, really valuable. And I ended up going with several of their recommendations for professionals on the deal. So that was great, and they were able to provide all those introductions to me.
Okay, let's switch to operations. When I was visiting you a while back, you talked about some of the things you did the first few days, the first few weeks, little things that seem to have a big impact.
Yep.
Just share a few of them. And, I know when I heard them, and I hear this all the time from people, it sounds so basic, but often these previous owners or CEOs don't do these little things.
Yeah. So this business has been around since the 1981, just celebrating its 40th year, and a lot of the processes have not really kept up to pace with current times, and that's no disrespect on the previous ownership, but coming into this with a fresh set of eyes, there were a few things that kind of I was looking at saying, that doesn't make sense. I think we can improve that with relatively little either financial cost or just without totally upending the processes in place. Because I'm obviously drinking through a fire hose coming into this new business and trying to learn things and not trying to make anything too drastic. But you're right, little things do add up. So everything from looking at our trying to sort of reduce our net working capital requirements by stretching payables or figuring out more efficient ways to receive cash. So getting payers to pay us via EFT when they were paying by check, putting things on credit card that were previously being paid by check. And that seems like a small thing, but when you suddenly have the ability to pay 30, 60, 90 days out where you were just paying the day of, that makes a big difference on your financial metrics. Small operational improvements, streamlining our shipping, so you don't have to enter in the address of the customers each time, kind of creating a database. And we're starting to look at CRMs and on the medical billing side, we've done a lot of paper claims. We're starting to look into electronic billing there and working with clearinghouses. So a lot of different components. Those are just a few of the things. But we're and in the warehouse, I guess the last thing I'll say, we've made a lot of just small equipment purchases, whether it's a new set of shelving, bubble packing stations where you can have a roll and just cut it off instead of having to pick it up, and move that, little things that add subtract 5 or 10 minutes from the process, that adds up a lot, and it really has kind of made a difference.
Share with us the few things you did to make smiles, get smiles from the employees your first few days. I remember you telling me those things.
Yeah. So I think there were a few things kind of just that had during the transaction process that had sort of been ignored. There was a water filter that we wanted that previously people either brought their own water or went next door to a coffee shop nearby to get fresh water. We installed a water filter system, and that really made a pretty big difference. People could, use our break room fully. Paper towel holders. We had paper towel. We just had them kind of sitting, and people didn't like that they had to touch the roll and got all messy, and just buying that. There were some stationery, some stamps, new pens, and office supplies that previously weren't getting approved. It was nothing major, but it did make a pretty big difference on morale.
Yeah, it is amazing how sometimes those little things really get people happy.
Yeah.
So back to the diligence process.
Mm-hmm.
What are a couple of things you learned that you would do again or not do again?
A few things I'd do again or not do again. It's a good question. I think it's very important to do as much diligence as you can prior to engaging with professionals, before you get to your quality of earnings, before you get to your lawyers, before you get everyone involved. You want to be able to do as much as possible. And I did a decent job, I feel like, but where I may have gone awry, and what I could have improved on, was when it came time to engage those professionals, especially on the attorney side, having a clear plan of action as to what you want them focused on and what you want them to not focus on. When you're working with transaction attorneys, they, just like banks, are looking to protect you. So they're looking at things in kind of the worst light possible, and that's good to an extent. but you have to be able to define what you want to what you really think is worth digging into, and what you think is worth pushing back on the buyers or excuse me, the sellers on, and what may not be a major detail. And so really having a game plan when you talk to those professionals is quite important. Otherwise, that diligence process can stretch out a really, really long time and end up costing you a lot of money. The other thing, just, communication with the seller. Every seller is different. You want to be very conscious that this is it can be an emotional process, and for the seller, and be in constant communication, and trying to sort of gauge, not lose track of the fact that this is more than just a transaction for them.
Yeah, and we had the interesting situation of the business being owned by a trust, actually two trusts. Trustee not
Yes.
familiar with selling a business within a trust, and family issues, and that definitely added some complexity to the thing.
Yep, absolutely. And that brings up another point on something I maybe could have improved on. It was a little bit tough to foresee, but where we had a lot of difficulty in the deal was on reps and warranties, which is a really, really important part of a deal. And it's hard to express that in the IOI or the LOI phase, but to the extent that you can, if you can even just agree in principle on some of those topics, either that, networking capital, that's another contentious one that gets a lot of people. You don't necessarily have to have it all entirely spelled out, but the more you can sort of outline in your LOI, the better off you're going to be when it comes time for the actual paperwork. So neither party is surprised.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that most buyers will never see this, but the trust didn't want to rep and warranty anything. So they bought insurance on your behalf to cover that. So
Yep.
Interesting situation. Finish up with a couple things, and you can add what you want. What advice do you have for others that are out there searching, who want to be a buyer and an owner like you are?
Well, the first piece of advice is to just get out there and start doing it. I think a lot of people start to overthink the process, and they're like, oh, I need a website, and I need to have my pitch, and I need to have my financing lined up and everything. The reality is there's nothing preventing you from picking up the phone and calling someone, and reaching out to owners, reaching out to brokers. So that's the first piece of advice. Second piece of advice is don't be too picky. Every business has potential, but and also issues. You're not going to get that totally golden goose, or it's unlikely that you're going to find that business that has absolutely no financial issues, personnel issues, has a perfect clean record, no customer concentration. So even though you have your ideal set of criteria, figure out which ones are essential versus kind of a wish list, and be prepared to make some compromises.
I think you're right. There are no perfect businesses, no perfect deals, and take something where you add value and can see where you can add that value.
Right.
So I know it's 3 months. That's not very long. When do you think you're going to want to start thinking about maybe even looking for an add-on acquisition to Ward Road?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm in a particularly fragmented industry where the first about 50% is owned by major national retailers or players, and the remaining 50% have revenues. The average revenue of a pharmacy is well under $5 million. So it's there is a lot of potential for bolt-ons. I think with this industry being as regulated as it is, M&A can be very challenging, as I've found out. I'm in month 3, and I still have not finished the ownership transfer process. There's 10, 20 plus accreditations that we have, and working with our insurers and providers, and that process has frankly been kind of overwhelming at times. So I'm not rushing into things. Maybe year 1, maybe year 2, probably closer to the 2-year mark. I think there's a tremendous amount I can do organically. This is a pharmacy that's grown to what it is today, a team of 27 with absolutely no sales or marketing team in place. So we have a lot of opportunity to expand with our existing infrastructure before I start thinking about bolt-ons.
Good. I don't have any more questions for you. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, I certainly appreciate your help throughout this. It's always great to have someone you can bounce ideas off of, and someone who has done this before. I would say, if you have not done an M&A deal before, to certainly have someone. It's good to have someone in your corner who has. So yeah. I'm excited. I think this company has a lot of potential. I'm very grateful. I feel fortunate to be here, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we go from here.
Thank you, Lance. And for those of you listening, if you have any questions for Lance, it is lance@lmlcap.com, and Ward Road Pharmacy outside of Denver, Colorado. And I thank you for taking the time, Lance. And I know people listening are going to get a lot out of this.
Good. Happy to do it.